the Yippie. If you expected everything to start on time or in some sort of sequential order, you would be severely disappointed. But we will give you the most unique, informative, and entertaining night possible. I'm John Murdoch, and welcome to the Yippie Cafe, and welcome to Occupational Hazards.
Yeah.
All right. The people who are performing were the ones who were clapping, and I appreciate that. So we have a very interesting slate of speakers and performers today. This is the lone political open mic here in New York City. This is where we are here to hone our arguments while we go out and try and make them for the rest of the world. So we're not just blindly streaking, you know, fuck the pigs or any other thing that people think is going to change the world, but really just makes people kind of look at you with pity. So we're going to actually make reasonable and compelling arguments while apathy seems to have silenced down. If you see bags underneath the people in the Yippie's eyes, is because they have gone through 8 different wars, and there are a few musicians in this audience who know what we're talking about. We had a great Saturday. You know, once again, the Cannabis March marched, and no arrests. I think it was our first march with no arrest, and we did light up, so I was quite proud of that. You know, the police actually, some of them just looked jealous, like they wanted to be smoking with us, or, you know, that we weren't angry at our own erections. Maybe that's why they were jealous at us. Either way, it was a really beautiful day, and then Occupy This album. We have some of the performers from that, and that was a really cool night. And again, I'm going to say this, Joey Gay and I hosted that. We had a benefit that ended on time. I know, yeah. Like, everybody looked at us with rage, like, who the fuck is this guy ending the benefit on time and on schedule? It's unheard of. I guess none of you have been to benefits. All right, never mind. Inside benefit humor does not work with this audience. So, I'm going to dispense with humor and get to, well, at least pseudo attempts at humor. I'm going to be bringing up a few people to speak today, and then we are going to get down to it as we always do, talking our shit as we talk our shit. Our first speaker is a gentleman, you may have seen him at May Day, because he was making the argument for a more just world then. You may have seen him Saturday, where he brought an amazing music group, and then made the argument for a more just society, and to get the police out of our pipes, and, you know, get the police to stop acting under the racist laws they think they must enforce. And then last night at Occupy This album, people are going to say we're in love, I think, if we keep this up. But it is my pleasure to bring up George Martinez, Bum Rush the Boat, and this is the man you should pay attention to. He has a lot of good ideas. Thank you. Everybody, a little more love. I need to hear it.
Very cool. Well, first of all, thank y'all for being here this evening at this wonderful location. Give a rousing round of applause for the Yippie Cafe. Yeah. My name is George Martinez, and I'm a proud member of the Occupy Wall Street movement. I'm a proud member of Occupy the Hood. But my activism, the work that I've been involved with stems from before that, before September 17th. And it primarily has been centered around the empowerment of my community with the limited resources that we have. Right now, in the United States of America, Occupy Wall Street has ignited imagination, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time, especially around remixing a system that we all know is broke. There are very few people in the country who actually believe that our system works. But more importantly, there are very few people who know why it doesn't work and how we can actually affect institutional levers of change to be able to begin to rebuild a system that can work. So Occupy Wall Street ignites imagination. It brings to bear the power of cultural relevancy, issue literacy, and direct action. But like all movements, it's going to be very difficult to stop where it goes. For several months I've been educating people around what was going to happen this year. Early on in September I knew that this year would be a very important year for us to be able to not only build community and build our capacity to begin to solve problems locally without formal mechanisms of governance, because that's important to Occupy. Building autonomous structures is critical. But what I knew was that this year is going to be the year that everything would be filtered through a political lens. There would be very few things that wouldn't be filtered through a political lens. I mentioned on Saturday, for example, at the cannabis legalization rally in March, shout out to all the organizers, that I believe that the war on drugs as we know it has ended. It is ending rapidly, daily. And I told you a story about Colombia, meeting with police chiefs and meeting with folks on the ground, political leaders. But what I told you was that there was a narrative that you all got. And the narrative was sex and the Secret Service. Political literacy now comes into question. How do we read politics? How do we read what happens? How do we write outcomes? Occupy Wall Street, when it started, mainstream media didn't want to cover it. And if they did, they covered it in a way that we weren't comfortable with. They still do it. So we created our own media. Channels popped up. Newspapers sprung to life. So we know that we can rebuild something to compete with the corporate control. Can we take that power into the space where those laws are being made, those decisions are being made, the decisions about what happens with the war on drugs, the decisions about what happened with local policies and statutes that are often repressive. And in this case, where we're talking about marijuana arrests, we know that they're absolutely repressive, especially when they're targeted neighborhoods and communities of color, low-income communities, because it's part of a web called the prison industrial complex. So how do we bring to bear the power of Occupy, the power of issue literacy, electoral direct action to affecting the structure, the system, while we're rebuilding the system independently? Well, political literacy is the first step. For years, I've been educating my community on how to read politics. What happened? What did they just say? And how to write outcomes. What do we do about it? Does voting matter has been a question in my community. In this movement, people have asked, why should we get involved in electoral politics? While at the same time, we've been occupying spaces where there are public officials. We've been calling attention to some of the most egregious recipients of corporate money and their voting records that are often pro-business against the interests of communities. We've occupied the boardroom. We've occupied the Department of Education. We've occupied the SEC. Well, the question is it the system that's broken, or is it the people who are operating, who are occupying the system? Do they have to go? Are they broken? Are they corrupt? Can they be repaired? Is it enough to use Occupy language? Is it enough to co-opt the movement? Will we see, when the President of the United States says things like the 99%, will we see our hopefulness sprung to life? Or will we say, this is what's going to happen? They will begin to use our language, but not talk about the real issues. They'll begin to look like the progressive movement to reclaim liberty for people in the United States of America, to bring peace first as foreign policy, to get out of individual, ordinary people's lives the power and the repressive power of government, so that people can live like our natural creed for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Or will we allow those people who have been dominating the system to keep making decisions while we're protesting at those decisions? So, for me, it's about empowering my community to absolutely bring to bear the power of grassroots organizing to solving problems, but not neglecting the formal apparatus. In 2008, I was organizing in Alaska, Alaska's a wonderful state if you haven't been there yet. They have some wonderful, wonderful people, great community. The nations, the indigenous nations are vibrant, but what they have is a frontier mentality. And I'd like to take you there because Occupy Wall Street and Bum Rush the Vote are about developing a frontier mentality. A mentality that says party identification is less important than ideas that people talk about. And ideas that people talk about are less important than the work that we do. And so, in Alaska, I was a part of a thing called Our Time. And it was about remixing the vote. That's what we call it, again, from a very hip-hop perspective. But not remixing the vote so that we can encourage people how to vote, but primarily to say that getting people in to the electoral process, by empowering young people to know the tools of engagement in the electoral process, we can begin to threaten the power structure where they are comfortable, in the halls of power. We've successfully outreached to 10,000 people in Alaska, which is difficult. We think about it from a New York perspective, 10,000 people are right here in a 2-block radius, if that, smaller maybe. But in Alaska, it was grassroots, going out to rural communities, people spreading the word. We registered a few thousand people, but more importantly, the community kicked out a Republican who was in office for 30 years, Ted Stevens. He might have been there for 40 years. He was the longest serving Republican at the time. There was a mayor of New York, of Anchorage called Mayor Mark Begich. Mayor Begich won that election, became the new senator at that time for Alaska, gave a unified House, Senate to a new president with the same party. There was a mandate for social and economic justice that we thought was coming out of the call for change and the hope for change. And I was encouraging people to not get caught up in the national hype. Because I know all politics is local. And what we did in Alaska was organize block by block, township by township, enough to be able to turn an election with the power of hip-hop, issue literacy, and direct action. Now, I was happy with the result of the election, but I wasn't there to promote either or. Because the movement of Occupy has to be nonpartisan. It has to be about destroying the power of the corporate influence over our democracy in the first place, which means that political parties, you should feel threatened by our movement because there are Democrats who are ready to occupy the Democratic Party. There are Republicans, or people who live in Republican districts who are Occupy activists who are ready to step up in those communities. There are people who are moving on different parties, different sides of the coin. They should be concerned because what we're going to do is share the information. That's what Occupy can do. Share the information of how we actually can build a people's movement to compete with the corporate control over our elections. Now here we are, New York City, the home of the Occupy movement, for me the birthplace of hip-hop, the original occupying force in the hood since 1973, when a cardboard box on the sidewalk transformed that sidewalk into a dance studio. Well, we transform parks too and public spaces, so it is absolutely the most Occupy thing you could do. And now it's about taking that power to bear on elections. Many people in the movement again said early on we shouldn't get involved, but the reality is we can't avoid it. But it's important that we get involved with a methodology that is based on the values and the integrity of the movement. So now, my candidacy is not really about George Martinez. Although I would argue I'm a well-qualified candidate to be a representative in the House of Representatives, especially for my community. But that's less important than how we actually build a campaign that reflects the values of Occupy, that reflects the tactics and strategies of Occupy, and that we can do it in a way where we can share our successes and failures with others so that they can take the reins over local leadership and power of their neighborhoods and their communities. So we shall leave no stone unturned, is my narrative with the movement. So here we are, building a do-it-yourself model to compete with the corporate-controlled models of how to run elections. When they say it costs $1.2 million to win the average congressional race for the House of Representatives. We also say getting money out of politics is critical, part of the Occupy language. But considering that I'm economically challenged still, but I'm absolutely rich with culture and community, I cannot fight fire with fire. I cannot spend more money than the people who are spending money to say we should spend less money. It's not possible. The people from my neighborhood don't have that money either. And I quite frankly don't want to take money from wealthy people who think that that's the fight we should take, because that's not the way we should take it. We absolutely challenged the political power structure and the corporate power structure that leads to the repressive politics and policies that we all know exist, that lead to things like the prison industrial complex, the deterioration of public education, the stop and frisk policies, the absolute atrocious medical marijuana infringements, and absolutely the infringements on people's right to choose what's in their best interests. And we lead that conversation directly to the ballot box. But we do it the way we occupy. So I know right now, if you're from New York, you should think about this very seriously. A person can take the Occupy language, lots of people are doing it, and run with it. I've received phone calls from people who said that they were X, Y, and Z from the Occupy movement. Now, I know occupiers. We actually don't talk like that as much as we talk about the work and the sphere of activity that we're a part of. So you might say from this working group, or you might say from this affinity group. So there are a lot of people who are going to appear like us, to look like us, but who are not actually us. Who are not committed to the fundamental principles of empowering the community with a grassroots approach. So they're going to take labels, they're going to run around, get PAC money. They're going to come back and say all the right things. They're going to buy all the right TV ads. They're going to look awfully convincing to a lot of people who won't come to the park, but who will be sympathetic to Occupy, but who will only get their cues from the news. See, because I was in Town Square in Fort Greene, and I know one thing was very clear. Fort Greene Public Housing Project residents were not at Town Square, Occupy Town Square. But they should have been, because they really were, because their issues were there. The community who stands with them in solidarity was there. Outreach was there. But there are some things that we have to account for, which is how people receive their cues. Those folks are down with us. That's me. But they're going to receive their cues from sources they're familiar with. News, the political cycle. So now we have candidates popping up across the country. And I knew it would happen, but see, my grassroots Wemadua, which is a Swahili word for quality control, tells me that we must build in all spaces so that we can provide the quality control of what things look like when people are paying attention. Because a grassroots organizer means that you should be somewhat of a visionary to be able to build things that people might reject at the moment, but that they will grow into. That's what grassroots building is all about. No one knew what Occupy would become. They wouldn't know it would be in every country in the world, basically. They wouldn't think that it would be actually about to change the reality of our country and the world when they first saw people in a park. But that's what happened. And this is what we can represent. So now here we go, looking at an election bringing the power to bear of direct actions, calling attention, but doing it with a new model. What's that model? Well, turning the community into a super computer. We started something in the park, and it was the GAs, and they weren't really effective. They were at the beginning, to be honest, and it was definitely exciting more than it was efficient. And over time, most people lost their excitement, and they just understood the inefficiency. But the movement didn't stop. So what we proved is we can build structure, and we can discard it when it doesn't work. That's very important, because that's the most fundamental thing we can do as American citizens and our obligation to improve our country. So, we try to build new systems. Well, how do we bring the power to bear on elections? Let's start the conversations once again and turn our community into deliberative bodies in a very Madisonian way. Occupying the park is critical. Occupying the community is critical with work. A lot of people say there's not a lot of jobs in the neighborhood. There are tons of jobs. There's just not a lot of money for those jobs. So now we need to rebuild an economy based on a new value system, a new value structure that values work in a creative way. I call social capital investments a valuable asset to our economy, for example. So I'm unwilling to let political people make decisions, co-opt us. I'm unwilling to let a movement not absolutely move on all fronts, and I'm unwilling to let my own capacity not be utilized, and that's part of what a movement is. Now, I put a suit on and I'm running for office, but in all humility, no matter how I've investigated these conversations before, I would not be able to be a candidate if it wasn't for people in the movement believing in the model that we're trying to build. If we're successful, I'll get elected. But if we're really successful and I fail after getting elected, the model will be able to take me out. That's a model I want to see. I want to build that model with people right here in this room. I want to bum rush city government next year. I want to take over the mayor's office next year. I want to take over Albany the year after, and I want to take over the United States Congress and the rest of the bodies within the next 4, 5, 6 years. Because there's more of us than there are of them. And those are the people who believe in repression. There are more of us who believe in liberty and who believe in grassroots empowerment than there are who believe that we have no hope. There are more of us who see the truth now and who are becoming awakened, and that's what we prove as Occupy. So when I see the people who would only get their cues from a political speech, I know in my chest I got to go talk to them. And what we did in 4 weeks was reach out to 7,000 to 10,000 people talking face to face. We collected 3,000 signatures, and we raised about $500 at that point. $500. Now I committed more money in legal fees than we did in actually the operation to get signatures, to get on the ballot. And on May 1st, it was our ballot hearing. The challenge that was there, where they challenged our ballots, when we get on the ballot. We were in the park screaming, another world is possible. Students from Robeson High School walked out to exercise their rights at the threat of getting suspended, and they did get suspended. People are in the park yelling, this is what democracy looks like, but really what democracy looks like is a panel of unelected officials who decide who gets to be candidates on people's ballots. A part of the political process we never see. A part we must expose like every other part of the political process. Because they say the more we know, the more likely we are to get involved. Well, we hear a lot about politics, but we really don't know that much. We really don't know how to absolutely maneuver and formulate preferences and bring to bear outcomes and differences. We don't really know how to do that as a community. So we're more likely going to be protesting. Historically, people would argue for one or the other. George Martinez, as an individual, is not about that false dichotomy. It is not about that false choice. It is about everybody playing an active role in taking back what's already ours, our system of governance. But it's about being prepared to govern when we are taking over those particular formal institutions. That's why sharing building our capacity to be able to deliberate and distribute resources is critical. Occupy Wall Street did a lot of great things, but it also failed in many ways to begin to build deliberative processes and distribution of resources locally so that local communities could begin to reduce our reliance on government in the first place. But I have hope that there are lots of grassroots organizers who were inspired by the movement, but who brought their wealth of experience from decades of organizing. And that they're coming to bear to teach the young organizers their experiences with an equal playing field. And they're coming to build community in a new way. And when I saw those Robeson students step out, I knew that there was absolute hope. And when we knew that 3 other schools walked out, there was absolute hope that what the experiences are and were of the generations that came before will not be lost, will be utilized. And that's what makes this movement more special than I think most people will absolutely remember. It might have felt really special if you lived in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when it was really the beginnings of what became known as the Civil Rights era movement and the movement for social and economic justice. But we also know that the challenges were absolutely different. And we know to a great extent, lots of things failed. Part of why it failed is because we weren't able to build the connections between community in ways to provide quality control. We allowed people to ride the political bubble of the wave of protesters to political success at the expense of the community empowerment. So the community is no more empowered now, but we have more elected officials that rode the wave of that empowerment, and some of them are still in office for 20, 30, 40 years. So what are we going to do about it? I'm finna bum rush the vote. I'm finna take over my community, block by block, and I think we can take over the country, city by city. And I know we're already taking over the world, nation by nation. But I'm committed to a multi-pronged approach, grassroots organizing, educational empowerment, economic opportunity, and political literacy. We move effectively when we move knowledgeably. And the more we know about how to absolutely engage with this political system, the better our community is going to be, without again making the false choice that it's either or. You don't have to be down with voting, but you have to be down with organizing the actions. And our organizing actions are down with moving an agenda forward. So we move the agenda forward with the grassroots, we move the agenda forward with education, and we move the agenda forward by actually changing laws. And I'm committed to doing that. I'm George Martinez. This is the Bum Rush to Vote presentation. Thank y'all. Lightly got excited and sorry rambled lightly a little bit, and I hope to take some questions. But I encourage you to find out more. You can find us at bumrushtovote.net, .org.com, and Twitter at bumrushtovote, and just get involved with what we're doing. Take it back to your neighborhood. Right in this room are absolutely, I know of at least 2 people who will be bum rushing government in the next few years with us. Yes, brother Murdoch.
Out of curiosity.
Yes, sir.
You gonna vote for Barack?
I didn't vote in 2008. I said I organized in 2008. It was really important. But I told you that I tend to not get caught up in the national hype. I'm not down with encouraging the national voting until we actually begin to organize and mobilize locally. I do think that if there's a choice between one or the other, that people should make a choice appropriately. But let's say this. I have faith that with people who are committed to an unwavering progressive liberty agenda, that we may be actually able to help President Barack Obama complete the promises, and some of those promises that he delivered when he was candidate Barack Obama, and when he first got into office. Because it's unconscionable to me, for example, that universal health care in the United States of America didn't pass when there was a unified government with one party. But because some people in the United States don't believe that a woman's right to choose is decided yet, so a lot of those people also believe in repressive legal policies like, you know, criminalizing marijuana. Well, those people stop universal health care. I think we absolutely can help the president deliver by taking over Congress. So we may have, if he gets elected, I think we have 4 years to bum rush Congress and absolutely deliver on things that he may not otherwise want to deliver on, that we need him to deliver on, because we can do that. Yes?
I had a question. You said earlier that the folks in the projects were not out occupying in city center.
Yeah.
And you mentioned why you thought that was happening. What, in your mind, what your estimation is the way to get those people to join us?
Right. And I'm sorry I said actually projects. I think politically correct is public housing.
I probably said project.
No, I think we both did, but I'm from Brooklyn, and it's kind of what we do know.
We don't really care that much about the politically correct.
Yeah, I'm with you though, but you know, I'm not trying to be derogatory to my folks who live in public housing.
Yeah.
But we actually say that. The most important thing that I think we were able to start to try to ignite through this movement, this piece here that Occupy, and I think to some extent has been missing, but I think people are conscious of it, is the cultural relevancy piece. Making things culturally relevant. And corporatism. Wow. Whoa. Whoa. I'm a political scientist. I'm a professor of political science, and I got to think about that. It's not easily digestible. In the rap industry, there's a phrase, in most creative industries, there's a phrase called KISS. Keep it short and simple. There's other ways to say it. Yeah, you know the other ways. But consider this. Corporate control over our elections, war on drugs, stop and frisk, deterioration and assaults to public education, expansion of the prison industrial complex. All right, so these are things that like we know about, relevant, they're relevant locally. The biggest challenge is our disbelief that we can do anything about it. When I say get money out of politics, the real answer that I get is, yeah, all right. Yeah, all right, okay. Sure. How you gonna do that? Well, we're proving it. So let's go, let's do it, let's work together. First question that I get normally is, what you gonna do for me? What you gonna do for us? We need to re-socialize past that. At the expense of losing voters for giving them the right answer, I actually give them the real answer, which is, yeah, that's a whack question. Hold on, let's remix that. What are we willing to do together to start solving some of our problems locally so we can reduce our reliance on some of the repressive mechanisms that we're going to complain about or advocate against? If you make that claim, you got to start being able to deliver help to solving those problems that people are ready to let us know exist. So, like I said, I think one of the biggest flaws that Occupy did or that didn't do was getting into that space of beginning to solve the local resource distribution problem, especially in communities where there are very limited resources to distribute. I think it was really important. And we had a big window where people were paying attention. People were willing to order food. There was lots of things happening. And I'm not saying we used all resources wrong, but I'm saying that there was culturally relevant ways that we could bring the needs or resources to start facilitating the needs. In our communities, that's critical. And that's partly why there'll be a significant voting turnout in Democratic primaries, because politicians throw senior citizens barbecues.
Can we get one more question?
Yeah.
By setting up, in terms of setting up the actual mechanisms in which we work together with politicians to like deal with it, do you mean that we should set up like some kind of movement where it's, you know, a movement that continues to roll on past this sort of the election movements to continue pressure politicians such as yourself, if you get elected, to continue to work for us and to do the things that we ask them?
I think the movement must control politics. I think the more people that are involved in the conversation, the better. And at building the people's machine for the long term. Look, think about it from an economic perspective to give you a sense of the activity and what I'm saying in terms of a long-term strategic agenda. What industry is recession-proof? There are a few of them that are recession-proof. But political insiders know that politics, electoral politics, is recession-proof. Because there's always an opportunity to move somebody this way with resources that come from this other space. So consultants, lawyers, they love that business because there's always an election. Which means we can never stop. The reason why the civil rights era failed is because we saw successes and we lavished in some of them. Real talk. We lavished in some of them. We saw some things happen and we were good with that. Like, okay, great, man, I got some hope. The reality was that most people were still able to go a little higher. White men with college degrees had hopefulness that they could actually achieve something if they played by the rules, followed the work protocol, went to school. The difference between then and now is that there's so many more of us who are aware of the absolute crumbling of the economic system right around us, that hopefulness for any person with a college degree is just not there anymore. There's more debt in college debt than there is in other debts. When someone takes out $30,000 of college loans and owes $170,000 in interest. All right, so it's a long-term strategy. What the Robeson students represent is that our ability and our need to start teaching other young kids. I don't have necessarily a lot of faith that we'll see the fruits of our labor. We see any successes, God bless us. Real talk, but that's the internet can share those successes. But if we're able to start building the mechanisms of control while we're starting to solve problems locally and educate the young people that there can be another world, that another world is actually possible and this is what it can look like, well then I think in the long-term strategy, we don't even have to think about politicians with the degree of importance that we think about them now. We just know we run them. We tell them what to do, and if they don't do what we do with direct democracy engines, we take them out. You got 2 years, do your job or you're gone. That's what I think we need to have in our country. We need to have that spirit back again, and this is absolutely a long-term agenda. Thank you all. My name is George.
I can't call myself a Democrat, but I can back one Democrat. Everybody please give it up for George Martinez. Now, before we get in, there's one more speaker. I have a question. Who is here to speak? Raise your hands. Wow. Oh my God. I'm stunned. All right. It's only the artist. All right. So here's what I'm going to throw out then, because I have a lot of occupiers in the room. Next week, I will find, beg, borrow, steal, I will find food. I will find as much food. We need to eat. A lot of us are hungry. I have about a half a meal a day. I feel you. We're all very tired. Starting next week, I'm changing this mic. Pick people out. And this goes to the artist. This goes to everybody. If you disagree about tactics, bring it here. Let's debate it out. The more we are talking about our tactics, the more we're talking about what we want, the better off we're going to go. And I see a lot of like the spokespeople here who know their shit, but there are a lot of kids who just don't know their politics, who are really angry because they've been out there in the cold, they are hungry, and they're getting fucked over by the police, and they are no longer making sense, and that is by design. That is what they want. So I am making a concerted effort this week, now that my major marches are done for a tiny bit. I will find us food. I will give us a stage. When we are up here, I will not let anyone interrupt. I can be as much of a dick as I need to be. I was in sanitation, all right? So next week, how do we feel about this happening, all right? The evolution of the mic. We feel good, we'll go around and we will spread the word. Look for people. If you disagree with their tactics, but you love them as an occupier, bring them here. Let's start talking tactics, talk about what we want. That is what the Yippie is supposed to be. That is why I'm here, and the Yippies are behind this, you know, I'd say 100%, so we're not going to find too many places like that. So, with that interlude, I'm going to go back to the sign-up sheet, but it is a incredible honor, because we've had lightning strike twice. We have two people who, this gentleman has been fighting for the legalization of marijuana, fighting for reasonable treatment, and he has found ways of actually fucking the system in the courts, which is an amazing thing. And it's a good thing he works with marijuana, because he's been really fucking patient, because we had like 3 people booking today. So I asked everybody, please give this man your attention, because he is a very worthy. Joe Barton, please give him your love and attention. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I've been a marijuana activist for 40 years, and my fight has been always to free all marijuana prisoners and stop any more from going in. And the way we have to do that, a lot of the movements are being scammed. The medical marijuana movement is a scam. It's being run by the pharmaceutical companies. If you look at what's happening out in California, all the people out there were saying medical, 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 and they opened a few dispensaries, and they started growing a little bit, and now the federal government is shutting them down. And what the government's going to do is say, only the pharmaceutical companies can supply proper marijuana in the dosage. That was a scam. What we want is not legalization either. Legalization still means our brothers and sisters are going to be going to jail because they give a license to certain people, and it's not going to be anybody in this room. They're going to give a license to people with big money, big corporations. What we want, what I've been fighting for, is repeal. This law should have never been. It should be taken away. Once this law is gone, and we go back to the way it was before the law existed, any farmer could grow it, any person could grow it. Nobody went to jail for it. So we should be pushing for repeal of the marijuana law. Not legalization, not medical. They're scams. That's just a way to keep it regulated. We want no regulation. Now, we need to know the enemy right now. I'm talking to all these people who are doing the Wall Street Occupy thing. You need to know your enemy. For 40 years I've been active, so I've gained a lot of knowledge. Who is destroying America? It's the World Bank, the IMF, International Monetary Fund. They control our money in Washington. The Federal Reserve prints up the money. In 1933, under FDR, our government went bankrupt. Then they had to incorporate. So, most people think it's our government. It's not our government. It's a corporation. The Founding Fathers set up a constitutional government. We no longer have a constitutional government. What we have is a corporation telling us how to live our lives, controlling our money. Now, the World Bank has destroyed the economy of our country. They knew what they were doing. If you look at the foreclosures in this country, 12 million houses have been repossessed by the banks. Very few people understand how that went down. They like to blame, well, those people didn't pay their bills, so they lost their house. No, no, no. It was set up to fail. The World Bank, they pushed money into this country, made a bunch of jobs, let people believe that they could afford a house. Then they took mortgages. Now what the banks did, a lot of people don't understand, the banks took the original mortgage. They made copies of that original mortgage. In some cases, 40 copies, 100 copies. Then they pooled, if you take his mortgage and his mortgage and his mortgage and his mortgage, you pool them together, they become a bond. Now, they took these bonds after they created 40 forgeries or 100 forgeries from the mortgages, right? Then they took these bonds and they sold them on, and they gave them a AAA rating when actually they were forgeries. Then they sold them on Wall Street. Now, all the middle class that worked for 40 years and invested their life savings in retirement funds, those retirement funds bought those mortgages. And they were forgeries, and the banks knew it. Then the banks insured all those 40 forged mortgages with AIG. Now, in order for the banks to not get caught for the forged mortgages, they needed to make the person, when the mortgages when they became mortgages, I mean when they went into, they were turned into trusts. When the bonds, when they were turned into bonds, they became trusts. Now the trusts were insured by AIG. In order for the banks to collect 40 times or 100 times on one mortgage, and 40 times or 100 times from the people on Wall Street, and not get caught, they had to make the guy on the bottom go bankrupt, so he lost the house. When he loses the house, the trust collapses, the people who invested their life savings lose their money. AIG pays 40 times for the money that actually was backed by one mortgage. They needed to make that original mortgage fall apart. And how they did that was they killed the economy in this country. They shipped out all the jobs so that the money would stop flowing. This is being done by the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and our own Federal Reserve. They know what they're doing. They pay all the politicians. They pay the salaries of everybody. Our government is a corporation being controlled by the World Bank. Now, the Founding Fathers set up another government. That's the government of we the people. What the Wall Street people need to start learning is we are sovereigns. Now, when you start learning about sovereignty, sovereignty has a lot of power. I'll tell you the power sovereignty has. I got arrested. I was growing 300 marijuana plants. I had 40 pounds of weed. I had $40,000. I was making hash. I was making hash oil. When I went to court, I stood on sovereignty, and I used the laws that I'm going to read some of them to you in a little bit. I got no jail time, no probation, no peeing in a bottle. The court got so fed up with me, they said, go away and don't get in trouble anymore. Then I got busted again a year later. Police came in my door without a warrant, said they smelt marijuana, found 2 pounds of weed. I was charged with felonies. They sent the felonies to the court that I was just a pain in the ass to. That court said, we don't want him back in here, so we're going to drop the felonies. And they sent me to a local court. Now, I hit the local court with sovereign paperwork, and the local court ranted and raved, and the judge screamed and yelled. And I like to piss the judges off, because if you have a judge that's a tyrant, instead of being afraid of him, push him. Make him be such a tyrant that he oversteps the line and he breaks the law. And then when he does, tell him right in court, you just broke the law. I'm here on a misdemeanor and you just committed a felony. That blows their mind, right? Now, that case went for about a year and a half. And actually, it went for about a year. And then the judge said, we're going to take this to trial. And you're going to come back in 30 days. Well, 30 days came and went. 60 days came and went. 90 days came and went. And I've never heard from him again. I was driving along, and I had some pot, and my wife had some hash oil because she's was trying to heal her cancer with, I don't know if many of you know that pure THC oil cures cancer. And police pulled us over, and we've been arrested again, and now we're back in court. So they charged us with felonies, and it went back to the original court, and they said, we don't want him back in here anymore, and let's send it back to the other court. So now we're fighting in the other court. But I want to read you a few laws about sovereignty that all of you should know. Give me a second to find it. Oh, before I start this, when they bring you into court, they put your name in all capital letters when they're charging you, right? If you look at your birth certificate, your name was written in all capital letters. When you look at your driver's license was written in all capital letters. When you look at your Social Security card, it's in all capital letters. How were you taught in school to write your name? With a capital first letter and then the rest small. Yeah. That's a sovereign. That's a flesh and blood human being signs his name that way. Corporations are registered in all capital letters. So what they did when you got your birth certificate, they created a corporation in your name. Now, when you go into court, they bring you in as a corporation. They charge the corporation because under the law, under our constitutional law, they cannot charge a sovereign with a crime under a statute. Statutes do not apply to us. They won't tell you this. Lawyers won't tell you this. You can't get a lawyer if you want to be a sovereign. You've got to stand on your own sovereignty. And one of the reasons you can't get a lawyer is when you go into court, if you were a crazy person from a nut house, they bring you into court, well, then you can't speak for yourself because you're crazy. You need a lawyer to speak for you. So now you're a ward of the court. When you get a lawyer, the court assumes you can't speak for yourself. So now you're a ward of the court. So now it's up to your lawyer and the prosecutor and the judge to decide what they're going to do with you. You've allowed them to have jurisdiction to control your life. What you have to do when you go into court is say, wait a minute, I'm not a corporation. That name you have on the paper, that's not me. I'm a flesh and blood human being. I'm a sovereign. And I stand on my sovereign rights. Another trick in court. When you go into court, they say to you, how do you plead to these charges? Well, that's a trap. That's a trick. Most of what they do to you in court is a trick to get you under their jurisdiction. Because a sovereign is king, and a court don't have authority over a sovereign. They know it. They know it. Now, how they trick you is they say, well, how do you plead to the charges? If you say, not guilty, then the prosecutor says guilty. Now there's a conflict. He says guilty, you say not guilty, it's up to the judge to decide. So now the case is on. Right? That's a trick. Another trick they do is they say, do you understand the charges against you? Right? And most of us think in terms of Webster's dictionary. You say, I understand what you're saying, Your Honor, but they're using legal speak. When a judge says to you, do you understand the charges against you? What he's really saying is, do you stand under these charges? When you say yes, you're saying the case is on. So always, when you go into court and they say to you, do you plead guilty or not guilty? You say, I don't stand under these charges, Your Honor. Now you're being a real pain in the ass because you're not giving them jurisdiction. And then say, I'm a sovereign human being and I reserve all my rights. That means you're reserving all your constitutional rights. That's very important. Then he'll start saying, you understand the charges against you. You say, I don't stand under these charges. I'm a sovereign human being, and statutes do not apply to sovereign human beings. Now, the judge is going to rant and rave and try to trick you. I'm going to give you some law sites that have been ruled by the Supreme Court that prove what I'm saying. First of all, the sovereignty of a state does not reside in persons. That's another thing. They call you persons. Person is an artificial term. It's like a corporation. You are not a person. You are one of we, the people. That's very important. The sovereignty of the states does not reside in persons who fill the different departments of governments. Persons are the employees of we, the people. All those people in government are the persons. They're employees of us. We're the sovereigns. All right, but it goes, but the people from whom government emanated, and they may change it at their discretion. It means we, the people, can change the government. We, the people, can tell them what to do. When you're in court in front of a judge, if you go in as a sovereign, you can remind him he's an employee, and he should listen to you. They don't like it, but... sovereignty then in this country abides in the constituency, that's you people, and not with the agent, that's government. And this remark is true both in reference to the federal and state government. Persons are not people. And that's Spooner versus McConley. That's a Supreme Court ruling. Here's another one. Our government is founded upon a compact. Sovereignty was and is in the people. That's Glass versus Sloop Betsy. That's another Supreme Court ruling. People of the state are entitled to all rights which formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative. Now, in the Declaration of Independence, we threw out the king. And what did the Founding Fathers do? They said, we the people are sovereign. And we have all the rights of the king that we just got rid of. Now, how does a government that's employees of the king tell the king what to do? If you were in a country that had a king, would the servant come to the king and say, hey man, it's time to get up, or I don't like what you're eating, or I don't like what you're smoking? A servant does not tell the king what to do. It's time for the American people to wake up and assert their sovereignty. Government does not control us, we control it. I'm going to read you some more. The president has certain authority. Congress has certain authority. The Supreme Court has certain authority. Now, under our constitutional form of government, authority given by the people cannot be redelegated. Now, that's what they've done. The Congress has turned around and said, well, we're going to let the DEA make some laws. And we're going to let the FBI make some laws. And we're going to let this guy make laws and this guy make laws. No, no. When we set up the Constitution, when the Founding Fathers set up the Constitution, Congress was supposed to make the laws. So all these other laws were made as statutes. And they were put under corporate because they can't legally make laws against sovereigns. So when they bring you into court, they have to bring you in as a corporation. They have to bring you in under the all-capital name. So what you need to do, if you go into court for any reason, is say, I'm not that corporate person. That you got the wrong name on that piece of paper there. I'm a sovereign, and statutes don't apply to me. And I don't stand under these charges, and then challenge them. Now, under our form of law, in order to bring someone to court, you have to have an injured party. If I punched somebody here, then that person could bring me into court and say, I have been damaged. I've been hurt by Joe. When a prosecutor brings you in and says, the people of the state of New York are charging you, you say, what people? Put them on the stand. Where is the injured party? Now that fucks them up. Then you say the prosecutor does not have jurisdiction over a sovereign. And you demand that the prosecutor prove that he has jurisdiction. When you challenge jurisdiction, jurisdiction can be challenged before the trial, during the trial, and even after you're convicted. If they convict you, you then can say, wait a minute, they didn't have jurisdiction to do this. But you have to, when you first go in, tell that the prosecutor don't have jurisdiction. Now, I'm going to read you a few more, because some of these are really great rulings. While sovereign powers are delegated to the government, sovereignty itself remains with the people. And that's Wick versus Woe versus Hopkins. There is no such thing as power of inherent sovereignty in government of the United States. You got that? I'm going to read that again. There is no such thing as power of inherent sovereignty in government of the United States. In this country, sovereignty resides in the people, and Congress can exercise no power which they have not, by the Constitution, entrusted to it. All else is withheld. That means all the statutes that they've created do not apply to us. When the Founding Fathers made the Constitution was to keep government in line. It specifically said, President has this power, Congress has this power. It delegated specific powers to them. Later down, they did the Bill of Rights, the 10 Amendments that most people claim. But the basic part of the Constitution was a compact between, it was an agreement, it was a contract between we the people and them. And the contract was, you have certain authority, limited, to do certain things. Now, they've gone way beyond that. Now, what it's up to the movement to do, I'm not against marching in the street. I've been marching in the street for 40 years. But what we have to do is take them into court. That's where we're going to have the real victories. So all the different groups that are marching in the movement need to organize, need to start learning the law, and need to start challenging them in court. Right now, we have an outside force controlling our country. We've been invaded by the World Bank, the IMF, and their agent is the Federal Reserve. And they're controlling all the money. Now, I was in the military, and like every other person in the military, we swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Well, we have foreign enemies, the World Bank and the IMF, but we have traitors in this country. All the politicians have now become agents working through the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve pays the salaries of Obama, pays the salaries of all the politicians, pays the salaries of the judges. It's all been, there's two governments. That's what you really need to understand. There's the government of we the people, and then there's the government of the United States of America, which is an incorporation. It's a corporation. Now, how does a corporation dictate policy to we the people, sovereigns? They can't. If you take them to court on what I've been telling you, they can't beat it, because the Constitution only allocated a certain amount of authority to them. It's like they're operating, there's two governments. They're operating in one. We, from lack of knowledge, have allowed that government to control us, to dictate to us, to make us feel like the servants, the slaves, the serfs. We are sovereigns. We threw the king out. The revolution has happened. We don't need another revolution. All we need to do is stand up for what the Founding Fathers put in place and learn the law. Thank you very much.
Joe had this idea to take the Declaration of Independence and replace the king with the corporate United States of America residing in the District of Columbia, and then to take colonies and replace it with states. and almost to a T. It's perfect. It explains exactly what's happening, just a few parts. The corporate United States of America residing in the District of Columbia has made judges dependent on its will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries from the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. The corporate United States of America residing in the District of Columbia has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their subsistence and drain them of their equity and livelihoods. The last one, the corporate United States of America residing in the District of Columbia has kept among us in times of peace paramilitary police as standing armies without the consent of our sovereign people. The corporate United States of America residing in the District of Columbia has effected to render the paramilitary police independent of and superior to the civil power. So what Joe just told you is what you can actually do in court to get things back on track again. It's very exciting.
Where can we find that?
I'm just encouraging dialogue on this. I have a TV show on every day on Community Affairs called Farther Down the Rabbit Hole with Paula Gloria at 12 noon. And then Joe just started his Pot Talk with Joe Barton that comes on at midnight Friday, again on Community Affairs. We're very grateful to be guests here at the Yippie Cafe. Thank you very much.
And is there a website where people can look this up and find out more about screwing our corporate court system? Is there a website, Joe? The website in particular?
Just Google our names.
Just Google.
Yeah.
Google Paula Gloria.
All right?
And you can Google Joe Barton. All kinds of
Google. I almost couldn't say Google.
Yeah, good.
All right. So Google Paula Gloria and Joe Barton and find out, and I will follow up. Look to 9 Bleeker's Facebook site, and we will be posting where you can get this information.
Great.
Quick aside, the dirty part of the night, and I want everybody to know, if you can't, we're all in the same boat, understood, but there's a metal jar if anyone wants to contribute to the general Yippie fund, because we're all broke. If you can't, we're going to speak for you anyway, and we want you to just keep coming. Keep coming, keep coming. The open mic portion is now open. Again, so, 6 minutes. The first person up is a man near and dear to my heart. He blew up the fucking stage on Saturday. He was pretty much the opening act at Union Square, and he didn't even know he was gonna be it. So, he's a man who runs one of my favorite shows at the Yippie, and that is a badass open mic with a hip-hop focus, but open to all. And that is King David. Please give this man some love.
Give it up one time for the Yippie Cafe, y'all. Is it in charge? Yeah, like Murdoch said, I had a great time on May 5th. It was fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. I performed in front of mad people, largest crowd ever. For me, I'm happy you guys let me perform. It was awesome. Good experience. And I'm here like every Wednesday listening to you guys, getting all this knowledge. It's good. It's good stuff. But I'm gonna do some music for you guys. I got an album dropping on June 3rd. The album release party's on July 21st. Like he said, we do the first and third Thursdays here, and we get a pretty good crowd. And it's live up in here, man, it's crazy. Also, on June 16th, we just booked the Yippie to do a fundraiser for the Brain Injury Association. So we're gonna be raising up some money for them so they can help people with brain injury. If you guys wanna come, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. I'm just gonna do one song for you guys, and it's gonna be on my album, so you guys get a little sneak peek. I'm not much of a speaker. I just make music and I hang out with Murdoch. You know, so song's called I Care. It's gonna be on my album. I came to put you out your misery. The Lord came and spoke to me. He told me that my gift is for me to free humanity in captivity, shackled by vanity. He told me they will follow me. Don't fear your enemies. I possess the truth, so in the end we got victory. I am fully aware of the meaningful issues that tear the world apart like wet tissue. The bro man status is this real life happening. It's our responsibility to rule the world properly. Money isn't first because money is a curse. We needed to survive, so we have no choice. But now we got a voice that can speak from the heart. Because it seems like we forgot we're more attentive to the pot. When the world begins to rot from the inside out, I think it's time to shout out. Time to stand out. Go against the grain, they can't wash my brain. As long as I reign, there will be no pain. Remember my name, I came destined for change. I don't care about change, watch me do my thing. Okay, yeah, it's your boy James Davis. Take a look around, tell me what do you see? Another city in poverty, another family hungry. So what's it to you? It don't affect you directly. So who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Do you care? Cause I care. Who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Do you care? Cause I care. Yeah, Lord knows I care. So, what's it to you when you're walking through the hood and you see a homeless dude and he's resting on the stoop? Most of you point and laugh, but see I do the math. I see a man who trips, slip, caught up in the system. Most of us make it out, but most of us can't cut it. Real talk, New York, I came to keep it 100. Can we blame him because he didn't finish school? Or can we blame them because they gave the shitty schools? Both sides have an argument, but it doesn't matter. How can we let a human sleep in the cold? How can we let people die because they can't afford medicine? How can we let them cry? What happened to your soul? We as the people take my message to the globe. We as the people need to make the world glow. Fuck the government, don't give a fuck about us. We spending money every day and the economy still grows. There goes to show. Can you see it? They don't give a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles. There goes to show. Can you feel it? They don't give a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles. Take a look around, tell me what do you see? Another city in poverty, another family hungry. What's it to you? It don't affect you directly. So who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Do you care? Cause I care. Who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Do you care? Cause I care. Yeah, Lord knows I care. I said take a look around, tell me what do you see? Another man without a job, another kid without a home. So what's it to you? It don't affect you directly. So who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Do you care? Cause I care. Yeah, Lord knows I care. I said, do you care? Cause I care. Yeah, Lord knows I care. I said, who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Who gives a fuck if the world breaks and crumbles? Damn, that was pretty quiet. I mean, I care. Obviously. Make some noise for the Yippie, y'all. I gotta memorize that song. It's fresh. I gotta memorize it. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for having me.
Which Thursdays?
Every first and third Thursday. So our next one's May 17th. If you guys can make it, you guys want to speak, sign up. We'll give you all the time you want.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Everybody give it up for King Dave. He was right on time. All right.
Moving right along. Check out this man's mic and check out this man's work because he is on the move. All right, we're gonna move. It's gonna be music, and then politics, and then comedy, and then I'm just gonna. That's how it's gonna be today. All right, because we're giving everybody love, and because if it's too much politics, if it's too much music, or it's too much comedy, people want to stab each other, and we can't have that. Not at the Yippie. Anyway, David, are you ready? Let's do it up. Everybody, give it up for David McCullough. Speaking, occupying, doing what is necessary.
Thanks, brother. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, this is my second week of doing this. My first time ever on an open mic was last week, so came back. Thank you for Yippie for having this. I think it's a great opportunity for us occupiers who are out in the street constantly talking to new folks. Why do we occupy? Strengthening our arguments. I love the tagline, make the damn argument here. Gives us 4 to 5 minutes, and usually we don't even have that. We're running into someone on the street who's like, what's this big action about? What are you doing? So thanks to the Yippie for having it. I feel kind of like a jerk because I'm going to take a different tack than George Martinez did about voting. But that's what I love about this movement. It's a diversity of tactics. It's all kinds of different things, and some that we haven't even thought of yet as a community. And some people are going to be bum rushing the vote. more power to them. I kind of want to speak to that at an institutional level, historical level, because one of the things George Martinez said was, the system broke, or is it the people driving it? That, you know, like, where's the problem lie? And if it is the people, sure, we can put folks like George Martinez and a lot of other occupiers into office, and we'll fix everything. Sounds good. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. But I do know that there's some certain principles that are at hand in the formation of this government we have that was best expressed by James Madison, the principal framer of our Constitution, when he said that the purpose of this government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. I mean, in today's nomenclature, right, it's to protect the 1% from the 99%. That's the way this system is developed. Those guiding principles are still at work today, and we have to understand that when we want to engage in the system. And so, to understand how we can engage the system, which I think folks like George Martinez are seriously grappling with, is looking back to our history. And one of my favorite examples is the Social Security measure, some of the New Deal programs that come about through FDR. At the time, we didn't elect FDR or any certain politician to enact these things, but those politicians, those people in power, react to grassroots movements that were on the ground at that time. So during the 20s and 30s, we have dozens of movements afoot in this country pushing for a basic wage, health care, housing, all these wonderful things that we still want today, just for being a citizen of this country. And what ends up getting enacted are what we think of as the New Deal programs, and they're a pittance to what people actually wanted. But it still shows that the people on the ground, and this is at a time in this country we had millions of registered communists and radicals and anarchists abound in this country, are mobilizing on the streets and their schools and their workplaces. We have the big sit-down strikes, which is just a step away from taking over those factories. You know, really radical mobilization happening in this country, and the 1% react to it. And FDR saves capitalism from itself. But again, and we can look to other movements, the civil rights movement, the environmental movement, the changes we get, whether it's OSHA or NAFTA, or not NAFTA, OSHA or, sorry, I was thinking of EPA, the affirmative action, any of these things, you know, we look at a president like Nixon, who passes OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which I've never seen an OSHA agent in my life, and I work in one of the most dangerous businesses in our country, in our, you know, economy. But all these things come about as a reaction to grassroots movements afoot on the ground. And I think that's something that folks like, you know, Bum Rush the Vote are talking about. It's this dual-pronged approach, attacking the electoral system, but also staying in the streets. You know, there's a great saying, 1 foot in the voting booth, 1 foot in the street. But in order to understand how we can affect the system, we have to understand how it was made. And it was made to protect them. So, you know, although we have all these great laws that we've passed through this grassroots mobilizing, whether it was the labor movement, the civil rights movement, the environmental movement, all of these things are wonderful. But we also see that they're not enforced, right? So, yeah, I've never seen an OSHA agent. You know, the EPA and the other regulatory agencies are policed by the very industries they're supposed to police, right? So, what I'm getting at is, our influence in the electoral system, in the institutions that they've developed to protect the 1%, is always going to be marginal at best. It's a pyramid, and our power lies at the base of that pyramid. That is right here, where we work, where we go to school. That's what's so powerful about those high school students walking out. They have power there. We have power in our workplaces. We have power in our hospitals that we're trying to save this Saturday in Bushwick, by the way. They're trying to close down all our hospitals. We have power there. But we don't have power in the halls of, you know, D.C. That is not where our power lies. And so, for the Occupy movement, I think to be effective, we have to stay in the streets. We have to keep mobilizing and reaching out to various communities and developing that people power that we really have, because the politicians will react. We're already seeing the dialogue. The nationwide dialogue has changed because of the Occupy movement. It's going to continue to change. Remember, we are only in our infancy. 6 months into this. We have a long way to go. I don't think you can talk about success or failure at this point. We are in our infancy, but we are figuring it out. And I think May Day was a great testament to that. So, thank you.
All right, moving along. Everybody give it up for David one more time.
You know, I've been reading a lot about Tom Paine recently, you know, and for me, of all the people we talk about as like founding fathers, which already were fucked up because it's founding father and like already 50%, but the reason I look at it like so much of our history was fucked up is because Tom Paine lost, you know, he lost, he was the one who basically whipped up the revolution. He was the one who got like the working people inspired, got people to follow basically plantation owners into like war. And then as soon as the war was over, they're like, fuck you with your working class empowerment. You know, and I feel like now is the time we should start looking at people like him. Because he was pretty much right on everything, you know, which is why he was buried. And maybe that's why they're trying to bury a lot of us right now. So look to the Tom Paines and the Tammy Paines. I don't know. I'll find a better name, all right? But I think we know my point. I'm going to bring up a gentleman who's instrumental in basically just about everything that happens at the Yippie. He does it all and then has time for his own projects. He's one of my favorite anarchists. I love introducing him like that. Everybody give it up for Brent Langle, please.
Hello, everyone. As John mentioned, my name is Brent. I am a playwright, a Yippie, and an anarchist. And kind of what I wanted to play off of is something that I'm actually really, really afraid of happening to this movement. There's been a lot of people that have been worried about co-option of the movement. They've been worried about stuff like, you know, McDonald's is starting now to advertise to occupiers. MoveOn.org and Democracy Now! And a number of other organizations are taking our language. As I mentioned, we're going to see it more and more. As the movement gains power, you're going to see our language show up. They've used Maybelline ads. They tried to sell Maybelline makeup to progressive women using Occupy. Now, that shit is annoying. It's really annoying, but I actually think it's a good sign. Because once again, we would not have the opportunity, we would not be having the effect that we were if the capitalists weren't trying to sell us our own shit right back to us. That's how the system's going to work, and as long as we don't buy into it, as long as we don't say, oh, well, if I buy Maybelline, well, then maybe, you know, this world will be fixed. But what
And that was Brent Langle, everybody.
So, we're doing good tonight, but it's all dudes, alright? So I'm fucking that up, alright? I would like to bring up somebody who, when I went to the park, was one of the people who was like, yes, I am on the right fucking team. And made me really start to question my commitment. And particularly in the winter, very often when I was fucking off, I would see it and I'd start to feel really fucking guilty, which is probably what I needed. Come back and do what I was supposed to. So it's my pleasure to bring up Lauren. Please, do it up.
Thank you, Murdoch. And hi, everybody. This is only the second time that I've come to the Yippie and been able to speak, so this is a really exciting thing to be able to do. And Murdoch, of course, one of my comrades in the park. But something that I really felt inspired to talk about, that I want to continue to talk about more, is something I've been experiencing most recently that I witnessed happened over the winter, is trauma. And in our society, mental illness and mental instability and trauma is not something that is recognized as a legitimate health concern. It seems that it's in a separate category, right? You know, you can go to the clinic and you can get basic care. You can, you know, fill out your application for government assistance. But when it comes to mental health care, you know, affording a therapist, affording counseling, they'll give you about 12 sessions and then you're cut off. And something that I'm seeing a lot in Occupy from someone who's kind of walked the line between being on the street with the homeless occupiers, the diehards, as I like to call them, and then you have other occupiers who are lucky to have housing and have resources available and maybe have jobs, that there is a scary divide that is happening, and a lot of occupiers have endured severe trauma as a result of the police brutality, as a result of living out on the street, of being malnourished, of being sleep deprived, being harassed, not just by cops, but by people on the street, just being very rude and cold. And it's something that we need to start addressing, and it's something that we need to talk about more, is where are we at mentally and emotionally, and is there enough that we're doing, not just to unite us with our common causes and our common frustration with the system that has made us this way, but in the last 7 months, what has happened to us mentally? Where are we at in our state? And I'm somebody who I know right now is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I was sent to Rikers Island on a graffiti charge because they delayed the posting of my bail for 8 hours, and they lied to me when I was being held and told me that there was no bail coming and that I was going to jail for 5 days and then I wouldn't be released until my court date. And the acceptance of that and the experience of that and going to jail and being sent on that bus and going over that bridge to that island was something that I'll never forget, and it's something that no one should have to experience, and millions of people go through it every year. And as a white female, I never ever would have experienced something like this because I am one of the privileged. But there are people being incarcerated like this, and no one is dealing with what happens to them when they get out. And I've been lucky. I don't know if any of you saw the Village Voice piece called Bail is Busted by Nick Pinto, but it touched on it a little bit about the disparity between what OWS is receiving in support, with jail support, bail fund, and what everybody else has to go through with public defenders. And not to criticize legal aid or anything, but there is definitely a difference. And I'm just seeing a lot of mental instability. I'm seeing a lot of people that are literally losing their minds and are not going to be useful at all in what we're trying to do if we don't help reach out to some of these individuals. I see it at Union Square, I see it at Tompkins Square, I see it at the Federal Hall goddamn Freedom Cage. And if you don't know what the Freedom Cage is, this is what our democracy has been reduced to. We were protesting on Wall Street for 7 nights. We were able to sleep on the sidewalk under a constitutional law that was backed by the Supreme Court. And yet we were still wrongfully evicted. We were hosed on a morning basis. We were harassed incessantly, and then we sought refuge on Federal Hall and were then barricaded in a square that was deemed the First Amendment zone, or the Freedom Cage. And we're accepting this. We sit there, and it's like we've accepted that these are the parameters in which we are allowed to exist. And if we step out of that boundary, we are immediately, told to go back. It's as if we are being alienated from society. And what you're seeing is a mental alienation where people are feeling that they do not belong to this world anymore, and they have recreated a new world that doesn't really make any sense to any of us. And it's destructive. It's extremely destructive. And I am really worried because I am one of the few that's able to coexist in that world, but also go out back into the real world and try to do outreach and try to talk to people who are, considered sane and have jobs and have kids and have lives and, watch TV and listen to the radio. And I don't do any of those things anymore. I don't listen to the radio anymore. And I'm a musician. I don't watch TV anymore. I don't know what commercials are going on. I don't know what the president's saying anymore. I am in another reality. And I feel like I'm more comfortable there because of everything that I've endured, and I'm around people that have endured it with me. But I don't know that we're dealing with it in the most healthy way. And we need help. And I'm asking all of you guys if there's a way that we can come together, and maybe it can happen sometime this weekend. We're all having a little bit of a pop-up occupation of sorts at Foley Square. It's going to be an all-day event. And I'd love if people could come out, and maybe at some point we can have just like a circle and we can all talk about this stuff. And I'm so excited about what Murdoch mentioned about getting some of these occupiers that I'm talking about in this room to let out some of these grievances and talk about what we're doing wrong and how we can reach out and kind of lift ourselves back up, because it's a problem, and I see a lot of amazing potential. There are some beautiful people in this movement, some people who gave up everything they had, including myself, to form a new life and commit to this new lifestyle. Because for me, Occupy is a lifestyle change. It's a life change. And so I encourage you guys all to help us out, because we need it. We love this movement. This is our faith. This is what keeps us going. But we are getting fucked up out there, and mentally we need to think about that and talk about that. So that's all I wanted to say.
No. Just thank you. Thank you. So maybe not just the Yippie. Let's set up debates and food. Like, people are fucking hungry. Let's start so we can get it to feed ourselves, and then start feeding the poor. You know, and maybe that's something that we should really be focusing on, because, you know, we're all over the place, you know? These are thoughts. We're gonna move to music now, and then comedy, and then Paul DiRienzo is going to scare the fuck out of us, because that's what he does, because he has a lot of knowledge. So, Jason, are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, you're right there. Everybody, East Village Artist Extraordinaire, Jason Trachtenberg. Everybody, give us a applause.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. Look at this moon. Oh yes, I've seen her here before. Real as anything you want to be. Look at the sun solidified in the sea, making her history. I like the sound of sanctity in the sea, albeit one you can see. Look at the sun, look at the stars, look at the moon, look at the sky, look at the sea, look at the sand. Real as anything you want to, real as anything. Real as anything you want to be. Real as anything you want to be. That red lipstick, whoa. Thank you. Crowded train is no excuse for a sexually unacceptable touch. I've already seen too much such to discuss. Such, thus, who are you? A stranger with a book, either shoulder to shoulder, foot to foot. I already know how you like to look at me. Can't you see I'm as lonesome can be, trying not to co-create reality and heaven aborts. I adore you, I'm as handsome can be. Razor sharp, trying not to set reality. Heaven aborts. Heaven aborts. Heaven, 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 heaven. Thanks. There's a second verse, I'm not quite familiar with that one yet. Thank you. All right. So I'll tell you what, I'll leave you with this then, guys and gals. Thanks. Oh, you're the best. Thanks. You're coming with me. You're coming with me. That's all I need. I co-executive produce an internet radio show called Pure Imagination on the Progressive Radio Network. Every week we have an Occupy update, 10-minute segment. If anyone's interested in being a guest on this, or maybe an upcoming week, I think we're good for this week, at the top of the hour, you just call in or you come on the show. We do it on the Upper West Side every Friday at 4 p.m. Occupy update. And I'm trying to get the host to write a song, but they're just like, the hostesses, I should say. But they're just, they're like all modern and think they're all busy and modern. We're all modern and busy. You know, we're too modern and busy to write a theme song. You know, it's just like, thanks.
Where's John? We need he'll come through. He's on a cigarette break. Yeah, he needs a little cigarette out. They're going to see it now for intermission. What company will come out there? Oh, man.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for your patience. So our next act is Kenny Bongo.
Kenny Bongo.
Kenny Bingo.
Bingo. Ron Kenny Bingo. Come on up.
Bingo bongo. It's all semantics. I wanted to do a few things. I don't know really what I want to do. I wanted to have a little rebut of what I did last week. Maybe I'll do that at the end. So, my friends, I live in the city, and I'm from South Jersey. Whenever I go home, people ask me, what's this Union Square all about? And I tell them that's where the protesters and the malcontents congregate. And I like to I like to hang out at Union Square because I like a good conspiracy, and I'm a malcontent, and it's not easy being an overprivileged white guy and being a malcontent, that's for sure. It's a problem with being white. You know, you got no one to blame for your problems. You know, you got no one to blame for your failures. You know, what am I going to say? Those damn Native Americans won't let me get ahead. You know, you know, it's not so easy being a straight male anymore. You know, so what? We started a few wars and stole all the money. You know, nobody's perfect. I mean, I didn't do it personally. I would have if I could have, but I don't know where they keep it. Like most white people, I've only picked up a few crumbs along the way. It still beats being a person of color in most cases. Sometimes I wish I was a lesbian, you know. 'Cause then nothing, right? And then nothing would be my fault, right? Have you ever heard one bad word about a lesbian? Nothing. I don't think they do anything wrong. Have you ever heard one bad thing about Ellen DeGeneres?
No, but I heard a lot of bad stuff about Christine Quinn.
Okay.
Oh! Really bad news.
I work alone, thank you. So, you know, I mean, I know that, I mean, that's kind of, I know it's ridiculous. How could I be a lesbian? How could, right? I mean, how could somebody who can't bench press his own body weight be a lesbian? But, you know, but no, it's true. You know, it's tough being a white man. If you're a white male in this country and you don't own a bank, you're a failure. You know, a lot of white men really think that. They're like walking around, where's my bank? Why don't I own a bank? You know, Fred owns a bank. You know, until they can't take it anymore, and they get a gun and they kill as many people as possible in 15 minutes or less. Or they get a sign and they go over to Union Square and start protesting. So the next time, I'm preaching to the choir, but you know, other people, for the next time you see a crazy guy with a sign telling you that the government's putting microchips in your cereal box, think of that as a healthy choice. Remember Arizona, remember Columbine, you know? And whenever I start feeling like I should go over to a bank, I just get my sign and I go over to Union Square and I start protesting. You know, and I actually feel kind of silly with my sign out there. I mean, it's like, nobody's oppressing me, but I still can't make it. You know, it's hard to get people behind that. Was that the bell or no? No, I just a little sore. You know, but I was actually went over in Union Square the other day, and there was a bunch of protesters protesting, and you know, I didn't even realize it, but I was part of the protest. I didn't even realize, I was just trying to get to the other side, and before you know it, I'm in the protest. It made me wonder about all those people in the Middle East. How many of them really over there protesting? How many were just on the way to the market to buy some hummus or something? Or, you know, I don't even know. I didn't even know what I was protesting for. I just knew I was in a protest. And I wanted to know because I figure if I'm going to be in a protest, I should know why I'm protesting. I don't have to agree with the protest. I should at least know what it is. And I didn't know, and I wanted to know. So I screamed out as loud as I could, "What do we want?" And everybody screamed back, "Gay rights!" You know. All right, I can get behind that. You know, part of the pun. You know. And then everybody was looking at me like, "And?" So I was like, "All right, when do we want it?" Because they go together, right? If you're going to scream out, "What do we want?" you got to follow it up with, "When do we want it?" Right? And it's always now. You ever notice that? It's always now, right? It's never in a reasonable time frame. It's never as soon as possible. It's now, you know. Except once I was at a marijuana rally for marijuana rights, and it was like, "What do we want? The legalization of marijuana. When do we want it? When do we want what? What are we talking about?" Yeah. I don't even know what gay rights are. All I know is people want them. And they want them now. And I wanted to know what they were, so I screamed out, "What are they?" You know? You know, and everybody was like, "The right to marry, serve openly in the military, and be free from job discrimination." Wow, see, that's 10 times fast, you know. And there was one more question I did have on my mind that I wanted to know, and I was like, so I just screamed it out again. "I'm going on a date. Does this shirt match this jacket?" No, gay rights it's actually gaining some headway, another pun. And you know, they've repealed "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," which that's a good thing, right? You know, the Army's new motto is "Shut up and blow me." I actually thought "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" was a good policy. Honestly, I think sometimes "Don't Ask" is the best policy. You know what I'm saying? Like when I go over and I go visit my Uncle Harry. He's 94 years old. I say, "Uncle Harry, how are you?" He says, "Don't ask." You know, because if I ask, he's gonna tell me about his goiter, the blood in his stool, his bladder. Better I don't ask. Better he doesn't tell. I mean, and you know, and I mean, you know, I get that you know, people in the Army.
Sorry, he didn't wind it correctly, so it never actually.
I got at least 6 minutes. Thank you very much.
Kenny, good job. Thank you. Thank you.
It's weird hosting a thing when you work for the thing that it is in. You have to run around a little. Please, everybody give it up for Kenny Bingo. Alright. And now, I'm bringing up the most ferocious of the Yippies. A man, you've seen it at damn near every Occupy event. He dropped the fucking hammer on Saturday on legalization. And again, I'm saying, if there's anyone out there who believes in our drug laws, the Yippie ringer, Paul, is ready to debate these fuckers. But so far, no one's taken up the issue because, of course, they realize it's a ridiculous fucking argument.
I've already thrown down the gauntlet.
Oh my.
To either of two people. And I sent an email to my old buddy, Curtis Sliwa, who I've debated before on this issue.
Oh, nice.
But I would actually rather debate that asshole shitfucker, Dennis Miller.
Oh, fuck yeah. The traitor?
Yeah.
The traitor? The comedic traitor?
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody give it up for Paul DiRienzo!
All right. All right, I want to talk about secrets because last night on my show I had Clark Stokely on, who's been here before, and we all know him. I guess most of you know him, and he has the WikiLeaks truck and has been doing some great stuff with Claire Leibowitz about, they're actually doing a reading, a dramatic reading of the chat logs between Bradley Manning and whatever the weird guy who narked him out, has snitched him out. And so I'm looking forward to that. He was talking about that on the show last night. And, you know, I've always been fascinated by secrets, so I decided tonight I'd riff for a few minutes on this whole idea of secrets. Because we live in a very secretive society. Ever since they dropped the A-bomb, you know, ever since they had the Manhattan Project, America has been a national security state. Since they put it in the, you know, people imagine this, I mean, they had the largest industrial operation that had ever existed on Earth up till this day, to create the first 2 atom bombs, which were used in World War II. And in order to do that, they had to put in a regime of secrecy that has really controlled America's psyche ever since. And lots of times we go around not realizing it because we don't know, right? There's a lot of secrets out there. And so folks don't, you know, I had a situation where I covered a story, a crazy old friend of mine who was the first Marxist I ever met in college. And 20 years later, I picked up the newspaper, and she was on the front cover of the newspaper, arrested for espionage. And I said, fuck! Like, this is like somebody you know, like you pick up the newspaper and in front of the New York Times, and how do they friggin' spy on America? And how could this happen? Well, they didn't. And I wound up covering this trial of these 2 people, very nice people, radical people, very activist people who were not spies, but were internationalists in their outlook and had many friends in countries that were at odds with the United States, at that time East Germany. And you know, as fucked up as the Stasi in East Germany is, you have to understand some of the best stuff on Chile, really reporting on what was going on with the Pinochet government, came from a bunch of East German filmmakers who the Chilean fascists thought were West Germans. And they were able to get in there and film it. So it's always good to have some other group out there who's not part of the main organization. So, you know, I learned a lot about secrets. For example, there's certain information in America that's born secret. It's, by its very nature, if it's something that is of crucial importance to the United States, you discover that as a layman, which happens all the time, I discovered, you have to shut up about it. You're not allowed to tell anybody about it. So, for example, if you are going through like a dusty part of the library and you're looking through books and you find like a secret Egyptian incantation that can destroy all Russian nuclear missiles with one recitation, you are required pretty much by law to shut up and not say a word. It's already secret. So people have been, and the government believes it has the right to arrest people who did nothing in their own minds and did not even know what they had done. They released information that was in the public domain. For example, in this one case I covered, which is, I think things like this are going to, this is very much part of the Bradley Manning case, is information that is classified, or which is top secret, is very high. I actually I can never admit that I would ever have seen a top secret document. Just to tell you that I saw a top secret document without clearance would put me in violation of about 20 years worth of prison time. Minimum. That's getting off easy, as I learned. But 20 years, that's getting off easy for espionage. All right, and what is espionage? Well, according to Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, any overseas communication by email, telephone, any communication by any sort of mechanical or electronic means with anybody in another country makes it legal for the United States government without a warrant to, and they could do this in the past. They needed a warrant from a special court called the FISA court, which was sort of the Maytag repairman of courts because it never ever turned down a request for a FISA search warrant. And so that would mean that people could be followed around and searched and everything done. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, you know, I found out that the FBI, when they follow somebody, it's not like in the movies. They don't have one person follow you around. It's actually by law. You'd be fired from the FBI if you don't do it the right way. You have to have 12 people minimum, and you have to actually have people stationed everywhere and watch you as you go by and report to each other. If you don't do it that way, it's too easy to be caught, and if you get caught, it's sort of like it's dereliction of duty, and it's actually a criminal offense, you know, because you work for the government. So they have ways of doing that, and they have amazing ways. They can break it. What these people I knew, these young people who were really just activist family people, did nothing except have communications with people in a country that the United States was at odds with. They actually went into their house on 6 different occasions without them ever knowing it. Went into the house, and they had teams. The first team was the photo team. They go in and they photograph your whole house. The second team is the search team. They search your whole house. The third team uses the photographs from the first team to put everything back exactly where it is, where it was. So it's almost impossible for you to tell. They even put dust of the same color as the dust that was on your stuff back and all that kind of shit. They do all that. They had cameras in every one of their bedroom, in every one of their rooms of their house. They had cameras in the post office so that when the target of the investigation, this woman would come and bring mail to the post office, they had photographs of her in the post office. And it was interesting how this whole thing started in this case. And this is one I know about, but it has so many parallels to the Bradley Manning case. This person had sent a letter to somebody in South Africa, which was sort of an impenetrable communist treatise on something this person had written in a book. And really the person who wrote the letter was a person who had gone through a lot of emotional problems in their life. And the FBI intercepted this letter, and then they sent a letter back making believe they were the South African government and called her and said, Nelson Mandela needs your help or else he's going to fall. The next meeting she met with an FBI agent who she thought was a South African secret agent, and that afternoon she broke about 16 federal laws and is now spending 25 years in prison, halfway through a 25-year prison term in federal prison for that. Her husband got 20 years for half a thumbprint on one of the secret documents. Not secret, classified. Top secret is like the death penalty. If you have one of those. A top secret document, 1 page, is like 1 page of numbers and codes. It's impenetrable. And yet possession of that could get you 40 years in jail. No, what they had was just conspiracy to commit espionage, which meant that they broke into their house and found out they had bus tickets and train tickets and they had fake passports, because I guess that's what people do when they went to East Germany. They did that kind of stuff. So although they never did actually commit a crime of espionage until this woman got a phone call saying, Nelson Mandela needs your help immediately. And she, of course, being depressed, and this happens to anybody really, just jumped to it and thought she was doing some great thing. Bam, like that. They came down on her. Just to give you some idea of the secret national security state that we live in and how freedom of speech is actually constrained by law. I'm going to leave now and leave you with this. Is constrained by law so that pretty much anything of any real importance that's made public can lead to draconian prison terms in the United States. And you don't have to be in the Army, you don't have to have ever signed a secrecy oath. It's just born secret. That's the way it is. And you're supposed to be responsible enough to know what the difference is. It's a strange thing we live, a strange world we live in, and it reminds me, going back to 1984, and some folks are saying about how we're all become more and more alike. And when I look around and I see we're all becoming more and more alike until finally we're all going to be, controlled like the movie 1984, sitting at our desks in rows upon rows, doing the work that the big leader has given us to do as part of our society. That is what our government wants. It really is, and that's what we have since World War II. We've had that system, and sometimes we don't know it, but it's like sort of going down our, it's like crawling down our backs and stuff, and we wonder what's going on. Well, that's what's going on. That's really what we're entering the national security state in America, where yeah, you have free speech as long as you don't release any information the government claims is classified, and we make the decision, not you. All right, thank you.
Paul DiRienzo, everyone. Just to illustrate what the hell he's talking about and kind of life with the Yippie, about, I don't know, a month ago, it was Thursday. I could call it morning for me, but it really wasn't. It was like 11 o'clock, and I wake up, and there's just this big old white dude in the fucking basement. And I'm like, hello, can I help you? And he's like, yeah, we're here to give you the free light bulbs from Con Edison. Now, I was just waking up, and I was like, pardon me, Con Edison is paying for the Yippie Cafe to have free light bulbs? And he goes, no, actually we're a company contracted by Con Edison to give you free light bulbs. And I said, let me get this straight. Con Ed is paying another company to give the Yippie Cafe free light bulbs. And he looks at me and he goes, you got a problem with that? And I said, yes, get out! Get out of the basement. I go upstairs, that ladder, there's another guy putting light bulbs all over the fucking place. He hands me a sheet that has, I think, half of his name